Pull up, grab the fuel nozzle, and get ready to fuel up on trends and strategies to grow your travel center business in this episode of the Truck Stops Here, brought to you by Natso. Now, here are your hosts, Amy Toner and Darren Schulte.
Hello, welcome to today's episode of the Truck Stops Here. I'm your host, Amy Toner, and I'm here with my co-host, Darren Schulte. Today, we have the pleasure of interviewing Dan Witkemper, Director, North America Payment at Gilbarco. Gilbarco is a Natso Chairman's member and a big supporter of Natso in the industry. Hi, Dan.
Amy, thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Today, we'll be chatting with Dan about the upgrade to meet the October 2020 EMV shift. I know a lot of our members have questions. So can you start by telling us about what EMV is?
Yeah, so if we look back at EMV, so EMV stands for Europay, MasterCard, and Visa. They started a consortium back in 1994 and later renamed that to EMV Co. in 1998. Really, that is the body that handles the standards for EMV globally, internationally.
And what is happening in October 2020?
Yeah, so when we look at October 2020, there's a specific event that's been referred to as liability shift. So the thing to know about liability shift is it shifts to the weakest link in the chain. So the liability for counterfeit fraud goes to wherever that weak link is. So think about it from the point of view of it could be the card issuer if they haven't issued an EMV card. It could be the processor if they're not able to process EMV cards. Or it could be the retailer if they're not able to accept EMV cards. Now, the first two items have really already been covered by the card issuers. Most of the cards out there, 99.99% of the cards have already been issued as EMV in the US. So that's not going to be the weak link. And the processors are already handling indoor EMV today, and many of them are already capable of handling forecourt EMV. So what's that mean? It means that the liability will be shifted to the retailer that can't process an EMV transaction come October 2020. Connexus has done some research and data, and what they've seen is, and what they project is, retailers are going to see in the convenience store and truck stop areas $451 million in counterfeit fraud in 2020, and that's only projected to grow as we go into 2021 through 2027. So when we look at that amount of liability, we've got to look at it from the point of view of how do we help retailers understand there's a liability shift coming and give them the tools that they need in order to avoid it.
Those are significant numbers you're speaking about. So what does a single independent operator in the quick statement, what does he or she do at this point?
So at this point, probably the biggest thing that they can do is, one, they need to take this seriously. Just last week, the card brands came out and said, hey, we're not moving the date. So October 2020 is the date. So it's very important that that is understood and that everyone is marching towards that date in terms of being prepared for the liability shift. Some of the first things that a retailer can start with is getting an assessment of the equipment at their site. So working with their ASC, their authorized service contractor, to determine what equipment's at their site, what level of EMV capability that equipment has, and then get a plan put together for getting updated to ensure they can support EMV by the deadline. When I refer to ASCs and equipment, I'd be remiss if I didn't also mention POS updates. So point of sale vendors are also in the process of doing POS updates to provide software that supports forecourt EMV. And it's just as important as getting the forecourt hardware done as well. So those two items come together, software updates done with the POS. In some cases, it may require a POS to replace some hardware. The forecourt gets upgraded with EMV hardware. And at that point in time, EMV transactions can be enabled at the site. And that retailer, once they do that, they avoid the counterfeit fraud liability.
Yeah, what are some of the, talk more about that part. What happens if they don't upgrade?
Yeah, so if they don't upgrade, what happens in October is any counterfeit fraud liability that occurs at their sites. And when we talk about liability, there's a couple different types of liability that retailers are probably most familiar with today. There's a liability that occurs from counterfeit, which is roughly 90% of the liability, or 90% of the fraud that occurs at a site today would be from counterfeit. The other is lost and stolen. So 10% of the fraud that occurs at a site today is lost and stolen. That's the portion of fraud that a retailer is used to paying for today in terms of a shift that they're responsible for. So what they're going to see in October 2020 is they're going to get hit with the other 90% that they don't see today, right? And that's going to continue to grow because as retailers enable EMV, and those retailers then have locked their sites down, the thieves, the cartels, the gangs are going to move from that site to another site, and the occurrence of EMV, or let's say the liability that would happen out of those fraudulent events, is going to grow with each site that they go to, as there are fewer and fewer sites to actually enable a fraudulent transaction at.
Okay. Can you walk us through the process for upgrading?
Sure. So there's a couple of steps. I mentioned earlier, starting with the site survey.
Yep.
And really, that is the best place to begin to get a real stern assessment on exactly what equipment you have at your sites. The next step, and this is part of a 5-step process. You got to make a determination if you're going to replace your dispensers or if you're going to do upgrade kits. What we tend to see in the industry is if someone has a dispenser that's, say, 6, 7, 8 years old, they're on the point where they're already making decisions to replace the dispenser and going with a newer dispenser. In our case, we have our Encore 700 product line. If we look at kits, anything that's newer than that, it would be something that, from a kit perspective, might make sense. So we have kits that go all the way back to dispensers that were manufactured in 1990, all the way through today. One of the decisions we make on a kit that we're seeing a lot of interest in is contactless. And contactless EMV is a faster method of issuing of conducting a payment transaction for EMV. It's roughly twice as fast as doing a chip card transaction. So what we see is about 80% of the dispensers and the kits that go out the door are going out with a contactless module installed as well. So that's steps 2. Step 3 is to ensure they got the right connectivity to the forecourt, because the prior connectivity that we're all used to enabling at sites is the 9600 baud or 192 baud, very slow, but suits the needs for pre-EMV. But when we get to an EMV transaction, there's so much more data that has to flow through that pipe that what's necessary is a high-speed connection to the dispenser. So effectively, we've got to take what's there and convert it into an Ethernet cable, or ability to send that much data over that pipe. So we offer something that does that conversion. It's called FlexPay Connect, and it basically wraps that 2-wire that's in the ground today and turns it into an Ethernet cable, if you will. Another option for some retailers, if the run is not longer than 300 feet, is to use Cat5. So that was step 3, ensuring you got the right connectivity. The 4th step is ensuring your POS is updated, that you've got the right software and firmware on your point of sale solution as well. And then it can support forecourt EMV. And last, step 5 is host enablement. Once you've got the forecourt updated, you've got your connectivity, you've got the POS updated, the day of install, the ASC is going to make a phone call to your network and say, this retailer is now ready to go to forecourt EMV. Please enable forecourt EMV at that site. And they'll turn it on. And at that point in time forward, you'll be processing EMV transactions at that location.
How long does that process usually take?
For a typical site, they're going to look at roughly being offline for about a day, somewhere south of 8 hours, when you take into account a full POS update and dispenser update as well. It's going to vary based on the number of technicians that are deployed to the site and when and time this occurs as well. Because what we understand is, and what we've seen in the past from prior upgrade experiences that are driven by regulatory events, such as the I time frame of 2008, 2009, or the indoor EMV upgrade cycle that just occurred. As we get closer to the dates, there are fewer technicians to do the work because at the end of the day, there's fewer hours to get that work done. There's more sites that are also taking those technicians' bandwidth. So what you find is that based on the number of technicians that are available, they start digging into overtime hours. And with that, the costs also go up as well.
Yeah, that was one of the questions I was going to ask. Is traditionally, it seems like our industry and the convenience store industry has a tendency to wait kind of to the end, and especially the smaller operations are often left out in the cold, not because of anyone's purpose is doing. It's just a matter of, they're the last often to call to get these upgrades.
Yeah, and we've seen that as well, and I think that's it's an excellent point that there's still time, and I think that's the good news here is from a retailer perspective, if they can get on board quickly, they can get a hold of their ASC, get the ball rolling in terms of getting the site surveys done, get the equipment ordered, and get it installed. If they can get all that done in the first, say, 3 months, maybe 4 months of next year, they can still be ahead of this what will end up being the pent-up demand that rolls between April through October of next year, right? And it's going to be really hard to get an install slot during that period of time.
Yeah, and is there an expectation on your part that there might also be, I wouldn't call it shortages, but just because of the potential huge demand on equipment upgrades, at least what I notice in a lot of the locations, there's going to be a lot of demand for upgrades. Do you think there's going to be situations where folks won't be able to get the equipment in time if they wait too long?
I think there's going to be a situation that could occur if they wait too long to get the equipment, just lead times being what they are. Currently our lead time on that type of equipment for kits is approaching 8 weeks. And it's just based on the demand that's flowing through right now, right? So as we get deeper into 2020, I can see that 8 weeks go into 10 or 12 weeks. So it's really critical that retailers take this seriously, and they start working with their ASC and their Gilbarco distributor as soon as possible so they can get to a place that allows them to do the install and the upgrade well before the October 2020 date. What we're concerned about is there'll be folks out there that say, oh, it's September, I'm going to call somebody now. And at that point in time, it's going to be really difficult to try to get anything done. I don't want to use the word impossible, but it's going to be impossible to get it done if you wait that long by the October 2020 deadline. Yeah,
that makes sense. I mean, if you wait that long, you could very well find yourself into 2021, depending on what the demand is, if everyone waits the last week or two to make a phone call.
Darren, was there anything else that members usually ask you that we should make sure we cover?
Well, I think actually, at least as it relates to this, Dan's done a fantastic job of explaining it. Yeah. And his emphasis has been take it serious. I certainly, again, from past experience, I'm just not quite sure everyone's taking it as serious as it's going to be. Yeah. And, as he referenced, once they start getting 90% of those things that they don't see today, they might see $200, $300, $400, $500 a day. And without exaggerating, it might be shocking to them how much those fraudulent things are happening that they just don't see today. So it could be staggering.
So I know Gilbarco has released a new EMV pin pad for the fleet side of the business. Can you tell us about it?
Yeah, absolutely. And so what we've delivered to the field, to the marketplace in terms of EMV with regards to the current keypad, we've got a couple different flavors of keypads out there today. One is a membrane keypad. That's what most of the truck stops are used to in terms of an alphanumeric keypad. Most recently, we've released an EMV compliant PCI 5 version of our keypad. So that keypad is now, it looks very similar to what I would say is our standard EMV keypad, although we've included the alpha characters on the keypad itself. That's available for most POS solutions in the truck stop market. There's still a couple that are in the field trial timeframe right now, but we hope that those will be well underway to production release here in the next few weeks.
I've got a kind of question, not to get us off track here, but a little bit offside the conversation we're having. But Gilbarco, with all your amazing experience and understanding of our industry, do you ever? And I get this question. This is the reason I'm posing it from our independents. Do you ever give assistance to members in terms of helping them guide about the number of pumps they may have or something like that? Are independent members able to utilize you guys as a resource knowledge group and so forth like that if they're building a new travel center or upgrading or something?
Absolutely. So we've got a deep, rich, grasp on what's going on in terms of the trucking fueling area. So what we'd encourage is, reach out to your Gilbarco distributor, and they can get in touch with us, and we can talk about maybe trends and things that are going on that would be useful for their specific circumstances.
It's fantastic. That's good. Good to know.
All right. I think we're ready for our fun questions, unless there's something I didn't cover that you want to.
Yeah. Was there any more details about the EMV changeover and things like that we didn't cover in this short period that we've got?
No, I think we hit the high points. And again, it really comes back to ensuring that folks are thinking about this in terms of taking it seriously. I think that's the key message, and that I'd love to for folks to hear and react to. And then if we look at October 2020 as a it's very near term. It's not really that many months away. So let's take it seriously.
Got it. And I don't mean now, it just popped up a question that popped up in my mind. I noticed last week when I was traveling, visiting travel centers, is some of the equipment already doesn't require a signature, and then obviously some of the older ones do. Is that something that's going to become common now when you go in and they are EMV compliant and you either contactless hit the equipment or you chip it? Are signatures and things like that going away, essentially?
Yeah, Visa came out a couple of years ago, and they basically removed the requirement to have a signature under a certain dollar amount. I don't recall what the dollar amount is off the top of my head any longer. But basically, they were moving towards a place where they say an EMV was going to take hold, and there really wasn't a need to drive for those signatures. So it was really about making it a more efficient process for consumers when they visit sites as well.
So that's interesting. So not only if you were slow to react to this, you're going to have older equipment that everyone else will be contactless and other and chip, not requiring signatures, and you still may be on the old program. So even from a customer service experience, that's going to be put you in a bad light, for lack of better words, because you're going to obviously be significantly slower than the competition who's already compliant.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And kind of picking up on a message I was providing earlier, the contactless readers are also a method for speeding up that transaction at the forecourt and inside the store as well, whether it be, in terms of it, specifically referring to here, a contactless EMV transaction.
Got it.
Speed of service.
And once again,
pretty much every interview we have talks about that. All right, we're ready. Okay, so we call it our fast fill segment.
Okay, I'm ready.
What is your go-to on-the-road snack?
Go-to on-the-road snack,
yes.
Atkins Bar.
Do you like to ride or drive?
I'm definitely a driver.
I've had all drivers. All right. If you're stuck at a truck stop in a snowstorm, how are you going to pass the time?
I'm going to go inside the store and shop.
All right.
Good one. How do you take your truck stop coffee?
I take it with heavy cream and Splenda.
Okay, and the last one's very controversial. Is it truck stop, travel center, or travel plaza?
I use them all, I'm not biased one way or the other. So I go all three.
Okay,
all right.
Thank you. Tell everyone how they can get a hold of you.
Yeah, so if you'd like to reach me, my name's Dan Witkemper. I work here at Gilbarco. You can reach me at dan.witkemper, WITKEMPER, at Gilbarco, GILBARCO.com.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Don't hang up.
Thank you.
Bye.
The Truck Stops Here was brought to you by NATSO, the association representing truck stops and travel centers. Visit natso.com for more information. The Truck Stops Here is produced by NATSO in collaboration with Human Factor. Producers are Amy Toner and Darren Schulte.